Please welcome dialogue designer Kit Challis.
Hello, Austin! This is my first trip to the States, so it's a good introduction. Cheers, thank you. Cool, I'm going to walk about a bit because I get restless feet. Cool, so hello, welcome to my part of CitizenCon 2948. My name's Kit Challis, a dialogue designer, and I work in the audio department in Wilmslow, most closely with Bob Rizzolo, the dialogue supervisor. So there's two of us doing dialogue for 2 games, and we work on both of them, so it's quite busy for us. And we go out to shoots as well, and it can get quite busy, especially in the run-up to something like this. So I'd like to talk about a specific element of dialogue, and this is how we monitor the other sounds happening in the game to influence how dialogue is heard. Now, should make more sense in a bit. So, as Barney said earlier, mixing a game has unique challenges which differ from film or television. We're never 100% certain what sounds are playing at any given time. Player agency, both you and other people on the server, means unpredictability of sound levels and sounds playing. Ships can land and take off almost anywhere, and LPCs can generate sound as part of their subsumption activities. If that ASOP terminal needs fixing, then they don't care if you're in a conversation with someone. Traditionally, our approach has been to master the recorded dialogue to a consistently loud volume with minimal dynamic range. Now, dynamic range is a difference in volume between the loud and quiet bits of the dialogue and all audio. Low dynamic range has a small difference between loud and quiet, and high has more of a difference. Using low dynamic range means we can err on the side of caution to ensure dialogue is always heard. So, a bit about the processing of dialogue. Dynamic range can be limited by audio signal processors called limiters. I know, catchy. Keep it simple, yeah. There's also compressors as well, which do a very similar thing. They just compress it. By turning up they limit the total amount of electrical energy a signal can carry. So by turning up the input gain, which is the energy in, and limiting the output gain, we can make the difference between loud and quiet less. And as a result, all the dialogue sounds louder with less difference in volume. You have to be careful because too much limiting can result in distortion and clipping, and that's bad unless you're doing it for effect, such as comms calls or TV, radio effects, that sort of thing. And then we send dialogue through high-pass filters to remove all the sort of low-end, like rumbles and knocks and bumps and things. And we use graphic equalization to accentuate certain frequencies to help the dialogue cut through, and lower others to provide clarity to the signal. These processes are always informed by critically listening to the dialogue and that particular actor's performance and vocal qualities. So here is a demo of our current setup. I apologize, you'll get very used to this conversation.
From time to time, jobs find their way to me that aren't orthodox requests. That's a better way to say that, but let's just say they aren't the kind of ops you can give to just anyone. They require a very specific type of person. Now, mutual friends have told me that you might be one of those precious few who are capable of completing a contract without question. If I'm wrong, we can leave it at that. Enjoy a drink in my spectacular company for a few minutes, and we'll part ways with the understanding that this meeting never happened. If I'm right, I might just have a gig that I could use you for.
So yeah, sorry the glass doesn't move. I couldn't attach it to his hand. It still clinks though. It's good. So the mix of that, the difference between the dialogue and the ambience was fine. It's perfectly acceptable. Background sounds give you just enough feeling of a busy bar, even though he's the only one in it, but ignore that. But you could still hear the dialogue really clearly. You could hear what he was saying. So while that approach is perfectly valid, it's rather static. The character almost seems unaware of their surroundings, speaking at the same volume, whatever the levels of ambient noise. And it's especially apparent when ambient noise is low, and it kind of results in the dialogue sounding a bit artificial or recorded. When you listen to the radio, it's always the same volume, and you don't get any sort of, anyone sort of putting a little bit of intonation or, a bit of, my ebbs and flows. So, let's try. Yes, we'll play the conversation again, and this time I'm sort of riding the levels of the ambiences, and you'll have a listen to the dialogue and see if it responds at all to the changes.
From time to time, jobs find their way to me that aren't orthodox requests. That's a better way to say that, but let's just say they aren't the kind of ops you can give to just anyone. They require a very specific type of person. Now, mutual friends have told me that you might be one of those precious few who are capable of completing a contract without question. If I'm wrong, we can leave it at that. Enjoy a drink in my spectacular company for a few minutes, and we'll part ways with the understanding that this meeting never happened. And if I'm right, I might just have a gig that I could use you for.
So, there's definitely a sense that he wasn't really aware of that change in background volume. He's kind of talking at the same volume all the way through. So, while the lack of dynamic range ensures that dialogue is audible at all times, it kind of sounds a bit unrealistic. And it's a very delicate balance, and many films, and especially TV, don't do it as well as it could be done. So let's try and dialogue with a higher dynamic range, so more naturalistic. So in this clip, you'll hear that we come up against a major problem. So this is with high dynamic range with big difference between loud and quiet.
Mutual friends have told me that you might be one of those precious few who are capable of completing a contract without question. If I'm wrong, we can leave it at that. Enjoy a drink in my spectacular company for a few minutes, and we'll part ways with the understanding that this meeting never happened.
I really should have taken the Ice Cube sounds out.
I might just have a gig that I could use you for.
What I've noticed is that as he leans, the dynamic range stays fairly level even as he's leaning forward and leaning back.
Yeah.
And you would expect as he leans forward, it to be more emphasized.
Yeah. So we do have the dialogue actually emitting from the head now. A bit ago, we had the dialogue emanating from the feet. Classic programmer thing, it is the easiest thing to do. But we got the problem with the people in the shops behind the desks. The desks were occluding the dialogue because they were in the way. So they were sounding muffled because they were still behind the desk. So we got them to fix that. So yes, as a character moves in and out, there is the opportunity for that to happen. But we can't hear all of the dialogue all of the time. So we can't have that with a mission giver, especially. This is critical narrative that we need to hear and understand at all times. So how do we solve this? Now, usually the first solution is ducking. And that's when we sort of make space in the rest of the sounds for the dialogue to be. And we accomplish this using metering. So it's just like a VU meter on a hi-fi or LED meter. The difference here is we can use those values to alter the playback of other sounds in the game. In this case, we meter the sound of the dialogue and lower the ambient sounds when it's playing. The dialogue mix now becomes aware of the context and situation in which the dialogue is being uttered.
From time to time, jobs find their way to me that aren't orthodox requests.
And you see here, this
That's
is
a better way to say that.
how much
Let's just
it's
say
ducking
they aren't the kind of
ambience
ops
by.
you can give to just anyone.
I did not know it did that. There we go.
From time to time, jobs find their way to me that aren't orthodox requests. That's a better way to say that. Let's just say they aren't the kind of ops you can give to just anyone. They require a very specific type of person. Mutual friends have told me that you might be one of those precious few who are capable of completing a contract without question. If I'm wrong, we can leave it at that. Enjoy a drink in my spectacular company for a few minutes, and we'll part ways with the understanding that this meeting never happened. All right. I might just have a gig that I could use you for.
So,
Is ducking the same thing as attenuation?
yes. Yeah. So it attenuates the volume of all the sounds that are getting in the way of the dialogue.
Right.
More algorithmic than simply flat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's, you can see, oh, I daren't use this again. Right, there we go. This, you can see this is the graph of how much it's reduced. It's a bit backwards, so when it's up here, that means it's, yeah, so that's the background noise, and it's backwards, so that's how much we've attenuated it. So up means down and down means up in this case, yeah. Okay, we're good. So the good thing is we maintain the dynamic range in the dialogue, and we carve out space from the ambience so we can hear it. And this is a really extreme version to demonstrate the principle. I would not ship a game with that severe ducking in it, but you get the idea. And the bad thing is, it's quite a blunt instrument. It can sound artificial. Would ship thrusters in a bar or a gunfight, really sound that much quieter just because someone's talking? So, not in the way we just demoed. So, linear media like film, they can script in lulls in the action. You sort of, everyone just sort of goes behind a building in a gunfight to have a conversation, and suddenly it's, the gunfight's happening like way over there just because they've gone around the corner, and they can have a perfectly reasonable conversation. So in essence, the environment is changing rapidly to accommodate the dialogue. So that's not very realistic. As you got a preview of, there is another way, and that's the Lombard effect. So both animals and humans have been shown to put more effort into speaking while under the effect of high ambient noise. We had a few discussions with about the subject with our audio director and other people in the audio department, usually over beers, and then read research papers to understand the phenomenon and how we could apply it in the game. So here's the definition. The Lombard effect, or Lombard reflex, is the involuntary tendency of speakers to increase their vocal effort when speaking in loud noise to enhance the audibility of their voice. Right, people know it's noisy, so they try and talk over the top of it. There we go. Yes.
Or in large rooms.
Yes, or in large rooms, yes. It's deathly quiet in here. So probably the best example is, okay, so you're in a noisy cafe or bar, Patrons raise their voice to be heard over the music and everyone else in there. And we know they're speaking louder when someone smashes a glass. And there's usually one person shouting at the top of the voice. It's the most inappropriate thing they could be saying at that moment, usually about... no, I'm not going to say. Right. So, how can we implement that? So we use the same technique. We meter... So instead of metering the volume of the dialogue and lowering the ambience, we do the reverse and meter the ambient levels and use that to inform the loudness of the dialogue. So when noise levels are louder, we need to make the dialogue louder. So how do we get loudness into the dialogue? We could record each line twice with a normal and shouted version. So it is possible, and one particular recent game that will remain nameless has done this very, very well. It is expensive. So, good segue. So, it at least doubles the cost of the dialogue. And it's not just the dialogue recording, it's the facial animations as well. Because it won't be the same facial animation because another effect of the Lombard effect is people put more emphasis on their facial expressions to be lip-read more easily. So we would need twice the amount of facial animations. So, yeah, it's not going to happen. So it's too expensive and too complex. We need to transition between these lines mid-sentence, so we need to put breaks in the audio, and also they'd need to transition between facial animations. So we could simply increase the volume of the dialogue when the noise is high. But we can't really do that because the loudest parts of the dialogue would become too loud and uncomfortable to listen to. So we go back to what we did, or what we're currently doing, which is limiting the dynamic range. But crucially this time, we only do it at runtime, when the ambient levels are higher than the baseline. So we keep the loudest parts of the speech at the same level and turn up the quietest parts so they're audible against the noisy background. The Lombard effect tells us this is a perfectly reasonable and acceptable and natural thing to do. So as a result, the dialogue mix, and therefore the character speaking, then becomes responsive to their surroundings, rooting them firmly within the universe we're creating, rather than merely playing back dialogue and animations when triggered. Maybe we'll pass the Turing test one day, you never know. So here's a demo of it. So this is the same...
Jobs find their way to me that aren't orthodox requests. That's a better way to say that, but let's just say they aren't the kind of ops you can give to just anyone. They require a very specific type of person. Now, mutual friends have told me that you might be one of those precious few who are capable of completing a contract without question. If I'm wrong, we can leave it at that. Enjoy a drink, my spectacular company for a few minutes, and we'll part ways with the understanding that this meeting never happened. If I'm right, I might just have a gig that I could use you for.
So, yeah. So, what you can see here is, you see this little vertical line? That listens to the ambient volume, so the ambient sounds, and it increases through this curve.
So you're sampling it in decreasing intervals?
I think this updates probably with the frame rate. So yeah, it's very, very responsive to what's happening. But what we can also do is model in that lag after. So if someone did smash the glass and we were able to cut the ambiences, he would carry on talking at that loud volume until he sort of suddenly realized, and then he would go back again. So, so it is a very subtle effect. But sorry, what was that?
Animate him looking around like, oh.
Yeah, no, that'd be good. That'd be good.
So is this sort of like just on the lower end, the quieter bits, is this sort of like a sidechain compression setup?
Effectively, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
So, in films we'd normally be, riding those levels because it's the same ambient noise all the time. Every time you watch a film, it sounds exactly the same, usually, unless it's a really bad cinema.
But when you add players, it becomes unpredictable.
Yeah.
And you can't just ride the faders.
No.
So
We can't employ everyone to just do a sound mix for every player. That would be good, though. Okay, so it's a really subtle effect, but as we heard, that was the same dialogue that was in that the third one I played where it was getting lost. That's exactly the same dialogue. We've not, so it's responding to those ambient levels and increasing that. So it allows us to solve the basic problem of ensuring dialogue is heard during a wide variety of situations while staying true to realism. And in this case, we studied scientific research to inform the systems driving the dialogue mix. Not merely sounding natural, but sounding natural in an ever-changing sonic landscape. God, I really wrote that. Oh, never mind. And I really should say it out loud. Yeah. And we're learning from nature to build these systems. So listen out for the Lombard effect in a future release of Star Citizen. I can't commit to a particular one, but it'll happen. And in the meantime, please listen closely to the dialogue mix of other games and see if that responds to the environment or it's static. I think that's it. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the next talk. Then the after party after that. And I'd also like to thank you guys because, it lets us explore these things that we wouldn't normally get to do. It would just be a standard, whack it in, get it out, get it shipped. And, your support really lets us explore these, new ways of doing stuff. So, thank you.
thank you.
For science!